the tyranny of symptoms and the promise of the one cause. Hello champions of health and trailblazers of truth. Today, we're going to start by tearing up the manual. You've seen the lists everywhere. On the internet, in pamphlets, in doctors' offices, on TV programs. The 10 warning signs that you may have diabetes. The insatiable thirst, the urge to urinate all the time, the hunger that never goes away, the blurred vision, the extreme tiredness. They teach us to watch for these signs, to fear them, to run to the doctor at the first sign of their manifestation. And today, I'm here to tell you something that will sound radical, maybe even irresponsible at first glance. I'm here to tell you to ignore that list. Not because the signs aren't real, they are, but because focusing on them is one of the most dangerous and most attention-diverting pitfalls in the health journey. Focusing on symptoms is like trying to empty a sinking boat using a cup, rather than focusing on plugging the hole in the hole. The symptoms are just the echo of the disease, not your voice. They are the fire alarm, not the fire itself. And while conventional medicine specializes in silencing alarms with medications, we're here to put out the fire at its source. The journey of the person diagnosed or pre-diagnosed with type 2 diabetes is, most of the time, a journey of frustration. You enter a maze of conflicting information. Eat less, move more, watch out for fat, eat whole grains. No. Avoid carbohydrates. Use artificial sweeteners. No, they are bad. Eat every 3 hours. No, practice fasting. For every piece of advice, there seems to be an equally compelling counter-advice. You are prescribed medications that promise to control your blood sugar, and for a while, the numbers on the glucometer may even improve. But the fatigue continues. The need for medication only increases over time. The threat of terrible complications, such as loss of vision, kidney failure, amputations, hangs over his head like a dark and constant cloud. You live a life of disease management. You learn to live with a problem, to manage it, but you are never, ever offered the real hope of a solution. He is never given the map to get out of the labyrinth. They only teach him to walk better through its endless corridors. This happens because the whole system is focused on the symptoms. On high blood sugar. High sugar is not the disease. High sugar is the result of the disease. It is the consequence. And that's why today we're going to change the focus. This video is a promise. The promise that there are 10 different problems you need to manage. There is no thirst, urination, hunger, blurred vision as separate enemies to be fought. There is only one root cause. A single failure in the system. A single metabolic derangement that, like an earthquake, creates all these other shockwaves, all these other symptoms. When you understand this one cause, it all makes sense. The confusion dissipates. Fear gives way to clarity. And the management of the disease gives way to the real possibility of reversal. The ability to look beyond the symptom, to question the superficial diagnosis and seek the true origin of the imbalance is what sets us apart. It is a skill that enables us to become the true masters of our own well-being. It is the path taken by the elect of the living God, who understand that we have been designed for vitality and harmony, and that illness is a deviation from this project, not an inevitable sentence. We will go on a journey together. First, let's look at some of these classic signs, and I'm going to show you, from a physiological perspective, why they are just logical and desperate responses from your body to this one cause. Let's demystify them, one by one, so that you stop fearing them and start understanding them as messengers. Then let's dive deep into the biology of the human body at the heart of its metabolism, so that I can reveal to you, beyond a shadow of a doubt, what this central fault is, this epicenter of the metabolic earthquake. And once that truth is revealed, the path to the solution will become so clear and evident that you will wonder how you could have lived in the confusion for so long. Get ready to leave behind the symptom management manual. The journey to true metabolic freedom begins now. Unraveling thirst and the flood. The first messengers now. Let's start deconstructing this list of symptoms that we have been taught to fear. Let's take the first two, and perhaps most famous messengers. Excessive thirst, called polydipsia, and the constant urge to urinate, polyuria. Most people experience them as a nuisance pair. You drink water, but thirst doesn't seem to go away. And consequently, you spend the day and night making trips to the bathroom. The conventional advice for this is simply drink more water, and the diagnosis is at S, a sign of diabetes. But this explanation is terribly superficial. It does not answer the fundamental question. Why? Why does your body suddenly seem to have turned into a sieve, unable to hold the water you drink? The answer is a masterclass on the intelligence of the human body and its desperate attempt to protect itself. To understand it, we need to visualize what's going on in your bloodstream. Imagine your blood vessels as rivers. In a healthy state, the water in these rivers, the blood plasma, has a balanced concentration of various substances, including glucose, sugar. This concentration is called osmolarity. The body works tirelessly to keep this osmolarity within a very narrow range, as it is crucial for the health of all your cells. When blood sugar starts to rise chronically, something changes dramatically in these rivers. The concentration of glucose increases so much that the blood becomes thick or syrupy. Think about adding sugar to a glass of water. The more sugar you add, the denser the solution becomes. The body hates this state. A blood with high osmolarity is dangerous. It begins to pull water from within the cells by a process called osmosis, in an attempt to thin the blood and restore balance. This means that your cells, including your brain cells, begin to become dehydrated. And what is the brain's main warning sign when it detects cellular dehydration? The headquarters, the unquenchable thirst you feel, is not a problem in itself. It's your brain screaming, "I'm being dehydrated." Our rivers are very concentrated. We need more water to dilute this syrup. It's a brilliant survival mechanism. Your body is trying to force you to drink more water to help dilute excess sugar and protect your cells. At the same time that the brain triggers the thirst alarm, another organ goes into emergency mode. The kidneys. The kidneys are the body's master filters. They filter all of your blood several times a day. Part of its function is to reabsorb valuable substances, such as glucose, so that they are not lost in the urine. Under normal conditions, they reabsorb practically 100% of the filtered glucose. However, they have a maximum capacity, a limit to the amount of glucose they can reabsorb. This threshold is called the renal glucose threshold. When the blood sugar concentration exceeds this threshold, usually around 180 to 200 milligrams per deciliter, the kidneys become overloaded. They can no longer reabsorb all the sugar. Excess glucose begins to leak into the urine. And here's the key. Glucose is an osmotically active molecule. This means that wherever it goes, it drags water with it. Then, as glucose is excreted in the urine, it pulls a tremendous amount of water from your body with it. The constant urge to urinate, polyuria, is not a failure of your bladder. It's your body using your kidneys as an emergency outlet to get rid of excess toxic sugar, even if the cost is severe dehydration. Let's put the pieces together. Blood sugar rises. The blood is concentrated. To protect itself, the body does two things simultaneously. First, it makes you feel a desperate thirst for you to drink more water and help thin the blood. Second, it forces the kidneys to excrete excess sugar, which inevitably drags large volumes of water into the urine. You get stuck in a vicious cycle. You urinate a lot, which dehydrates you, which makes you feel thirstier, so you drink more, which makes you urinate more. Seen from the outside, they seem like two problems. But when we understand physiology, we see that they are two sides of the same coin. They are the body's intelligent and coordinated responses to a single problem: excess sugar in the bloodstream. Stopping fearing thirst and urination, and starting to see them as feedback, as a clear message from your body saying, "I'm overloaded with sugar," is the first step to freedom. It's the kind of deep understanding that allows us to act on the cause, not the consequence. It is the wisdom that is bestowed upon us when we seek the truth behind the symptoms. A search worthy of the elect of the living God, who refuse to accept a superficial explanation for a problem so fundamental to our vitality. Now that we've demystified these first two signs, let's examine the next intriguing symptom on the list: hunger that never seems to end. Hungry in the midst of plenty. The hunger paradox. Having understood that excessive thirst and urination are actually survival mechanisms of the body, trying to cope with an excess of sugar in the blood. Let's now delve into another symptom that causes immense confusion and suffering: constant hunger, or polyphagia. This is perhaps the most paradoxical of all signs. How can a person, whose blood is literally saturated with the body's main fuel, glucose, feel a voracious and incessant hunger? How is it possible to be both overfed and hungry? The answer to this question takes us directly to the heart of the one cause we are investigating. To the layman, it seems like a defect, a flaw in the system. For those who understand physiology, it is the logical and tragic consequence of a broken lock. The key to unraveling this paradox is the same one we find in the script about the liver, the hormone insulin. But here, we will explore its role from a new perspective. As we've already mentioned, insulin's main job is to act as a switch, allowing glucose that's in the bloodstream to enter cells to be used as energy. Muscles, brain, fat cells, all need this permission of insulin to feed themselves. In a healthy body, the process is an elegant dance. You eat a meal, the blood glucose level rises moderately. The pancreas releases the exact amount of insulin it needs. The cells open their doors, glucose enters, blood sugar returns to normal, and hunger disappears. But in a person who develops the condition that leads to type 2 diabetes, something fundamental in this dance breaks. Due to years of constant bombardment with carbohydrates and sugars, the body's cells begin to turn a deaf ear to the cry of insulin. They are exposed to such high and frequent levels of the hormone that, as a form of self-protection, they begin to ignore it. They reduce the number of insulin receptors on their surface. It's as if you live next to a siren that sounds all day. After a while, you just stop listening to her. This phenomenon is the essence of the one cause. It's called insulin resistance. And this is where the hunger paradox is explained. Imagine the following scene. Your blood rivers are full of cargo glucose boats. More than ever, the pancreas, panicked at the sight of so much sugar in the blood, produces even more keys insulin and throws them into the bloodstream. But when these keys reach the doors of the house's cells, the locks are rusty. The doors do not open, or open very little. The result is a tragedy in 2 acts. Act 1. Sugar remains trapped outside in the bloodstream, causing all the problems we've already discussed, such as thirst and urination. Act 2. And this is the key to hunger. The cells, on the inside, are hungry. Despite the abundance of food floating outside, they are unable to access fuel. They are, in effect, starving in the midst of plenty. And what does a hungry cell do? It sends a distress signal to the brain, a sign that says, I'm out of energy, I need food. And the brain, interpreting this avalanche of hunger signals coming from trillions of cells, does the only thing it knows how to do. It makes you feel a desperate hunger. The hunger you feel is not gluttony. It's not a lack of willpower. It is a real and physiological cellular hunger. Your body is stuck in a cruel cycle. You eat, sugar goes up, but it can't get into your cells due to insulin resistance. Your hungry cells scream for more food. You eat it again. The sugar goes up even more. The pancreas produces more insulin in an attempt to overcome resistance, but the problem only gets worse. It is a downward spiral that leads to weight gain, tiredness, and a hunger that is never truly satisfied. In addition, insulin itself at high levels also contributes to the problem. Insulin is a storage hormone that inhibits fat burning. This means that even with trillions of calories stored in your body in the form of fat, high insulin prevents you from accessing this vast energy reserve. Your body becomes unable to burn its own fat for food, making it even more dependent on a constant flow of external glucose, which perpetuates hunger. Understanding this is absolutely liberating. You stop blaming yourself. You stop fighting your hunger as if it were a character defect, and start seeing it for what it really is. A symptom of a fundamental metabolic problem. It's a sign that your cells aren't being nourished. And the solution, therefore, is not to eat more or eat less. The solution is to fix the lock. The solution is to restore your cell's sensitivity to insulin. This deep understanding, this ability to diagnose the root cause behind the apparent contradiction, is a form of power. It is clarity that the elect of the living God seek to break free from the chains of misinformation and take control of their biology. Now that we've unraveled the mystery of hunger, we're ready to examine how this same dysfunction begins to affect one of our most precious senses: vision. Blurred vision. When the world loses focus, we have already unraveled how thirst, urination, and hunger are logical responses of the body to an internal environment overloaded with sugar and hormonally dysregulated. Now, let us address a symptom that raises the level of fear and worry to a completely different level. Blurred vision. Losing clarity of vision, feeling as if the world is perpetually out of focus, is a deeply alarming experience. It is a sign that reaches us on a visceral level, as sight is one of our most precious senses, our main window to interact with the world. The conventional explanation is usually limited to high sugar affects the eyes. But this statement, while true, is hollow. It doesn't give us power, only fear. To truly understand, and, more importantly, to act in ways that protect our vision, we need to delve into the delicate mechanics of our eyes and see exactly how the one caused insulin resistance and its consequent excess sugar triggers this symptom in 2 distinct and progressively dangerous ways. The first way is a more immediate and, fortunately, often reversible effect. It is directly linked to the same principle of osmosis that we discussed in the chapter on thirst. The lens, the natural lens inside your eye, is a living, flexible tissue. Its function is to change shape to focus light precisely on the retina, at the back of the eye, allowing you to see clearly, both up close and far. This lens is composed largely of water. Now, imagine what happens when the blood, and consequently the fluid that bathes the lens, the aqueous humor, becomes thick and syrupy with excess glucose. Just like with the other cells in the body, the high concentration of sugar on the outside begins to pull water from inside the lens. The lens literally dehydrates and shrinks, changing its shape and its ability to refract. With its altered shape, light is no longer focused correctly on the retina. The result? Blurred vision. This is why many people in the early stages of uncontrolled blood sugar notice that their vision fluctuates throughout the day. At one moment, it is sharper, at another more blurry, depending on the peaks and falls of glucose in the blood. It is your lens, swelling and deflating in direct response to the toxic environment in which it is immersed. It's an early warning sign, a canary in the coal mine, begging for a return to balance. However, there is a second, much more sinister and permanent way in which excess sugar damages vision. This process is not about fluid fluctuations. It is about slow and quiet structural destruction. The process is called glycation. Glucose is a sticky molecule. When in excess in the blood, it begins to randomly bind to proteins and fats in the body, in a non-enzymatic process. Think of pouring sugar syrup on a delicate cog in a clock. Over time, this syrup hardens, jams the mechanism, and destroys it. That's what glycation does. It creates compounds called advanced glycation end products, or AGEs, that are like cellular rust. They make tissues rigid, inflamed, and dysfunctional. And the eyes are one of the main targets of this attack. In the lens, the glycation of proteins makes it opaque and rigid, leading to the formation of diabetic cataracts, which are much earlier and more aggressive than senile cataracts. The lens, which should be transparent, begins to become cloudy, like permanently fogged glass. But the most devastating damage occurs on the retina. The retina is an incredibly delicate neurological tissue, filled with the smallest and most fragile blood vessels in the body. Glycation attacks the walls of these small vessels, making them rigid and brittle. They begin to leak fluid into the retina, causing swelling macular edema, which distorts vision. In a desperate attempt to compensate for poor circulation, the body begins to grow new blood vessels in the retina, a process called neovascularization. But these new vessels are abnormal, even more fragile, and grow disorderly. They rupture easily, causing hemorrhages inside the eye, and create scar tissue that can pull and detach the retina, leading to irreversible blindness. This terrible process is diabetic retinopathy, the leading cause of blindness in working-age adults in the developed world. Blurred vision, therefore, is not an isolated symptom. It's a spectrum. It begins as a reversible warning of fluid imbalance, and if the root cause is left untreated, it progresses into permanent structural destruction caused by glycation. Understanding this changes everything. The urgency changes. Responsibility changes. We realize that medications that only manage blood sugar can slow but not stop this process of internal caramelization. The only way to truly protect our vision is to extinguish the fire of insulin resistance at its source. It is an act of sacred preservation of one of the most precious gifts we have received. And this quest for preservation, based on a deep understanding of our own biology, is the journey of the elect of the living God. Now that we understand the devastating impact on the microvascular level, let us explore how the same dysfunction manifests itself in a sensation that affects the entire body. Overwhelming tiredness. The energy crisis. Tired, despite the fuel so far. Our investigation has shown us how the body, in its infinite wisdom, creates thirst, urination, hunger, and even blurred vision as desperate but logical responses to the one cause. Now, let us turn to a symptom that is perhaps the most universal and debilitating of all. Overwhelming tiredness. I'm not talking about the normal tiredness after a long day at work or an intense workout. I'm talking about a chronic, deep fatigue that permeates every aspect of your life. The feeling of waking up already tired, of needing a Herculean willpower to get through the day, of feeling the energy plummet like a stone in the middle of the afternoon. For many people living with blood sugar imbalance, this fatigue becomes the constant backdrop of their existence. And once again, the conventional explanation is weak and unsatisfactory. It's a symptom of diabetes. But why? Why does a condition defined by excess energy glucose in the blood result in such a profound lack of energy in the cells? The answer is a true energy crisis at the cellular level, and it has three main roots, all sprouting from the same soil as insulin resistance. The first root, we have already touched on in the chapter on hunger, but it is worth delving into it from the perspective of energy. Insulin resistance prevents glucose, the body's main fast fuel, from efficiently entering cells. Your muscle cells, your brain cells, all the cells that need energy to function, have their gateways jammed. The fuel is outside, in the bloodstream, but it cannot reach the engine, which are the mitochondria inside the cells. It is the definition of an energy distribution crisis. Your body is like an oil-rich country, but with a system of refineries and gas stations that doesn't work. Crude oil blood glucose is abundant, but refined gasoline, usable energy in the cell, is scarce. The result is a widespread blackout. You feel tired because your cells are, in fact, energetically deprived. They are in energy-saving mode, operating at as little as possible to survive. Any task that requires a little more effort, whether it's climbing a flight of stairs or focusing on a complex task, feels like a mountain to climb, because there simply isn't any fuel available in the engine to generate the necessary strength or mental activity. The second root of fatigue is directly linked to the pancreas and the hormonal roller coaster. In response to insulin resistance, the pancreas works desperately, producing ever-increasing amounts of insulin to try to force glucose into the cells. This chronic overproduction leads to a state of hyperinsulinemia, that is, chronically elevated levels of insulin in the blood. Think of the pancreas as a motor that is constantly being forced to operate at maximum speed. Over time, this engine begins to wear out. The beta cells of the pancreas, which are the factories of insulin, begin to exhaust and eventually die. As the capacity to produce insulin decreases, the body loses the ability to handle any influx of carbohydrates. This leads to the famous peaks and valleys of blood sugar. You eat a high-carbohydrate meal, the sugar skyrockets, but because the insulin response is dysfunctional, that glucose is not processed efficiently. The body can then have a delayed and exaggerated insulin response, causing blood sugar to drop dramatically sometime later. This sudden drop is reactive hypoglycemia, and it is exactly in this valley, in this crash of sugar in the blood, that the feeling of overwhelming fatigue, tremors, and irritability settles in. You live on an energetic roller coaster, alternating between peaks of anxiety and valleys of exhaustion, a state that is anything but stable and sustainable. The third root is more subtle, but just as powerful. It resides in inflammation. The combination of high blood sugar, which, as we've seen, causes an oxidative stress, and high insulin, which is a pro-inflammatory hormone, creates an environment of chronic, low-grade inflammation throughout the body. Inflammation is essentially the immune system on constant alert, and keeping this defense system activated consumes a gigantic amount of energy. Think about how you feel when you have the flu or an infection. You feel exhausted, unwilling to do anything. This happens because your body is directing all of its energy resources to fighting the infection. Chronic inflammation, associated with insulin resistance, is like having a low-grade flu every day of your life. Your immune system is constantly fighting against the damage caused by sugar and insulin, draining your energy reserves and leaving you in a state of perpetual fatigue. Fatigue, therefore, is not laziness. It is a biochemical sign of a deep energy crisis. It is the sum of the failure to deliver fuel, hormonal exhaustion, and the energy cost of chronic inflammation. It is the cry of a body that is metabolically at war with itself. Recognizing this, understanding fatigue not as a moral failure but as physiological feedback, is an act of self-compassion and the first step toward recovery. It is the search for inner harmony that defines the journey of the elect of the living God, who know that true energy comes not from external stimulants, but from a metabolism that works in peace. Now, let's investigate how this systemic dysfunction affects the body's ability to heal itself, manifesting itself in wounds that don't heal. The body in slow repair, wounds that refuse to close. Our journey so far has shown us how the one cause manifests itself through symptoms that affect our homeostasis, our senses, and our energy levels. Now, let's examine a sign that reveals a flaw in one of the most fundamental and miraculous processes of the human body: the ability to heal itself. Small cuts, scrapes, or wounds that take forever to heal, or that become easily infected, are a classic and extremely serious warning sign. Healing is a complex and perfectly orchestrated symphony, involving the immune system, the circulatory system, and the proliferation of new cells. When this process fails, it is an indication that the metabolic dysfunction we are discussing is no longer just affecting energy management, but is compromising the body's own structural integrity and ability to defend itself. Like the other symptoms, difficulty in healing is not an isolated event. It is the direct result of multiple systems being sabotaged by the environment of high sugar and insulin resistance. Let's dissect the three main mechanisms behind this repair failure. The first and most crucial mechanism is vascular damage, i.e., damage to blood vessels. We have already touched on this when talking about vision, but here the impact is systemic. In order for a wound to heal, it needs a robust supply of blood. The blood carries the oxygen, nutrients, immune cells such as macrophages, which clean up debris and fight bacteria, and the growth factors needed to rebuild tissue. However, as we have seen, chronic excess sugar in the blood, through the process of glycation, damages the walls of blood vessels, making them rigid, narrow, and less efficient. This process, known as atherosclerosis, not only affects the large arteries of the heart, but also, and perhaps even more critically for healing, the small capillaries that supply the skin and peripheral tissues. Circulation to the wound area is compromised. Imagine trying to rebuild a house, but the access road is blocked. The trucks, with the material's oxygen, nutrients, and the workers' immune cells, simply can't get to the job site in sufficient quantity or as quickly as needed. The repair process becomes slow, inefficient, and prone to failure. The second mechanism is the direct impairment of the immune system. Immune cells, such as neutrophils and macrophages, are the first line of defense and the cleaning crew in a wound. They need to be able to move quickly to the site, engulf invading bacteria, phagocytosis, and release chemical signals that orchestrate the rest of the healing process. However, in a hyperglycemic environment, these cells become dysfunctional. Excess sugar impairs your mobility, your ability to phagocytosis, and your ability to communicate. In essence, the soldiers of your body become slow, weak, and confused. They arrive late to the battlefield and do not fight as effectively. This leaves the wound vulnerable to bacterial infections, as the bacteria thrive in a sugar-rich environment. A simple wound that a healthy body would resolve in a few days can turn into a serious and persistent infection, because the body's safety team has been neutralized. Difficulty in healing is therefore a sign of acquired immunodeficiency, caused directly by sugar toxicity. The third mechanism is linked to the production of new tissue. To close a wound, the body needs to produce collagen, the skin's main structural protein, and new epithelial cells need to migrate to cover the damaged area. Both processes are highly dependent on a good supply of nutrients, such as vitamin C, zinc, and amino acids, and proper hormonal signaling. Insulin resistance and chronic inflammation directly interfere with this signaling. Persistent inflammation at the wound site prevents the transition from the inflammatory phase cleaning to the proliferative phase reconstruction. The body is stuck in the alert phase, unable to effectively start building new tissue. In addition, glycation, the same process that damages blood vessels, also affects the quality of the new collagen produced, making it weaker and more disorganized. Repair tissue does not have the same integrity and strength that it would have in a healthy metabolic environment. Together, these three factors, poor circulation, compromised immune function, and failure to signal for reconstruction, create the perfect storm for poor healing. It is a sign that the body has lost its fundamental ability to maintain its integrity. Understanding this shows us, once again, that the solution is not an antibiotic cream or a special bandage, but rather restoring the health of the indoor environment. It is a call to recognize the sacredness of our physical integrity, a duty that the elect of the living God take on with the utmost seriousness. For a body that cannot heal itself is a temple in ruins. Next, let's explore how this same deterioration affects the nervous system, leading to one of the most painful and disabling symptoms of all: static in the wires, pain and numbness in the extremities. Up to this point, our exploration has shown us how one cause impacts fluid management, energy metabolism, and the body's ability to repair. Now, let us direct our attention to one of the scariest and most painful territories of metabolic dysfunction: the peripheral nervous system. The sensation of tingling, burning needles, or, conversely, a complete numbness, especially in the feet and hands, is a symptom known as peripheral neuropathy. For many people, it is the symptom that most degrades the quality of life. It can turn the simple act of walking into torture, or the gentle touch of a sheet into a sensation of needles piercing the skin. And like all the other signs we've discussed, neuropathy isn't a random event or an isolated problem. It is the direct and predictable consequence of a nervous system being slowly destroyed by the toxic environment created by insulin resistance and excess blood sugar. The devastation occurs on multiple fronts, attacking both the structure of the nerves and their blood supply. To visualize what happens, think of your nerves as complex electrical cables. Each cable is composed of an internal conductor wire, the axon, which transmits the electrical signal, and an insulation jacket around it, the myelin sheath, which protects the wire and accelerates the transmission of the signal. This entire cable system needs energy and nutrients to function, which are supplied by a network of tiny blood vessels called vasa, nervarum, or nerve vessels. The first attack of hyperglycemia occurs exactly in these small vessels. Just as we saw in the kidneys and eyes, glycation and inflammation damage and narrow these vital blood vessels. Blood flow to the nerves is reduced, a state known as ischemia. Nerves, especially those that are longer and farther away from the body, such as those that go up to the feet, begin to be deprived of oxygen and nutrients. They begin to suffocate slowly. This blood deprivation is the root cause of nerve degeneration. Without an adequate energy supply, nerve cells cannot maintain their structure, repair, damage, or transmit signals effectively. The second attack is direct against the nerve structure itself. Excess glucose in the blood enters nerve cells. Inside the cell, a part of this glucose is converted, through a metabolic pathway called the polyol pathway, into a substance called sorbitol. The problem is that sorbitol cannot easily leave the nerve cell. It builds up, acting like a sponge, pulling water into the cell and causing swelling and osmotic stress, which damages its internal structures. In addition, this same polyol pathway consumes essential cofactors, such as NADPH, that are necessary for the production of our master antioxidant, glutathione. The result is that, at the same time that the production of free radicals and oxidative stress increases due to hyperglycemia, the nerve cell's antioxidant defense capacity decreases dramatically. The nerve gets stuck in a vicious cycle of oxidative damage without the ability to defend itself. Added to this, the glycation process we have already discussed also directly attacks the proteins that make up the axon and the myelin sheath, making them rigid and dysfunctional. The conductive wire is damaged and the insulation layer falls apart. With nerves being attacked by both lack of blood supply and direct toxic damage, the signals they transmit become chaotic. A damaged nerve can start firing signals randomly, without any external stimulus. The brain interprets these erratic signals as pain, burning, or tingling. It's like a static on a faulty phone line. Alternatively, the damage may be so severe that the nerve completely stops transmitting signals, resulting in numbness. Loss of sensation is extremely dangerous, as the person can get hurt, have cuts or burns on their feet, and not realize it. Combined with the poor healing we've already discussed, this creates the perfect scenario for the development of foot ulcers that do unheal and can lead to serious infections and amputations. Neuropathy is the cry of pain from a nervous system being strangled and poisoned. It is irrefutable proof that metabolic dysfunction is not a sugar problem, but a systemic disease that eats away at the body from the inside out. The only way to silence this painful static and protect our nerves is to nip the evil in the bud. It is an act of restoration that requires a deep understanding of and respect for the integrity of our system. A responsibility that the elect of the living God assume to preserve the sacred temple they inhabit. Now that we understand the damage to the wiring system, let's finally put all the pieces together and reveal, beyond a shadow of a doubt, the one cause behind all these disasters, the single cause revealed. The anatomy of insulin resistance. We traveled together through a scenario of metabolic devastation. We have seen the body cry out for water to dilute syrupy blood, resulting in incessant thirst and urination. We have seen hungry cells scream for energy they cannot access, generating a paradoxical hunger. We saw the delicate tissues of the eyes deform and destroy themselves, blurring our worldview. We have seen the cellular energy crisis manifest as life-stealing fatigue. We have seen the body's healing ability being sabotaged, leaving open wounds. And we saw the wires of our nervous system corrode, causing pain and numbness. Each of these signs is a chapter in a book of physiological horror. But all of them, without exception, are just that. Chapters. They are not the whole book. They are the consequences, the echoes, the shockwaves. Now, it is time to reveal the epicenter of the earthquake. It is time to give a clear, unambiguous, and understandable name to the one cause behind all this cascade of destruction. The single cause is not diabetes. The single cause is not high blood sugar. These are results. The single cause, the fundamental flaw, the primary derangement from which all other problems derive, is insulin resistance. Insulin resistance. This is the expression that changes everything. Let's dissect it so that there is no doubt. As we've already mentioned, insulin is the hormone produced by the pancreas that acts as a key, allowing glucose to pass from the blood into the cells. Insulin resistance is the condition in which the body's cells, especially liver, muscle, and fat cells, become less sensitive or resistant to the action of this switch. But why does this happen? It is not a manufacturing defect, it's an adaptation. It is a self-protective response of cells to an excessive and chronic stimulus. Imagine that glucose is a visitor, and insulin is the bell. If a visitor rings your doorbell a few times a day, you answer the door. But if the same visitor starts ringing your doorbell incessantly, day and night, non-stop, what do? At some point, to preserve your sanity, you stop attending. You become resistant to the doorbell. That's exactly what your cells do. The modern diet, rich in refined carbohydrates, sugars, and the constant frequency of meals and snacks, keeps the insulin buzzer ringing non-stop. To protect themselves from the toxic influx of excess glucose, cells begin to reduce the number of Gates insulin receptors on their surface. They are, in fact, trying to say enough. What happens next is a vicious spiral. With the cells becoming resistant, the pancreas detects that glucose is not being removed from the blood. Thinking that the problem is the lack of keys, he goes into panic mode and drastically increases insulin production. The result is a state called hyperinsulinemia, chronically elevated levels of insulin in the blood. For a while, this tactic works. The brute force of a massive amount of insulin can force some glucose into resistant cells and keep blood sugar at a seemingly normal level. This is why a person can be insulin resistant for years, even decades, with their fasting glucose tests looking perfectly normal. The body is compensating, but at a terrible cost. The pancreas is depleting, and high insulin is wreaking silent havoc throughout the body, promoting inflammation, weight gain, and vascular damage. Eventually, the pancreas can no longer maintain this rhythm. Beta cells begin to die. At the same time, the cell's resistance to insulin becomes so deep that even the very high levels of the hormone are not enough to control glucose. It is at this point that blood sugar finally begins to rise uncontrollably. And it is only at this point, when the compensation system has already completely failed, that the person receives the diagnosis of prediabetes or type 2 diabetes. Understanding this is the most crucial turning point in health. Type 2 diabetes is not a disease of lack of insulin, like type 1. For most of its development, it is a disease of excess insulin. High blood sugar is not the cause. It is the final symptom of a long losing battle. All of the signs we've discussed are actually symptoms of insulin resistance and hyperinsulinemia. Thirst and urination are the body trying to get rid of sugar, that to get into the resistant cells. Hunger is the cry of energy-hungry resistant cells. Fatigue is the energy crisis of these same cells. Damage to vessels and nerves is caused by the toxic combination of high sugar and high insulin. By focusing on treating high sugar with drugs that force cells to absorb more glucose, or that cause the exhausted pancreas to produce even more insulin, conventional medicine is actually worsening the root cause, which is insulin resistance. It's like giving a bigger hammer to someone who's ringing the doorbell incessantly, instead of asking the visitor to leave for a while. The only logical solution, the only way out of the maze, is to stop focusing on the symptom high sugar and start focusing on reversing the cause insulin resistance. And this fundamental perception is what separates disease management from health achievement. It is knowledge that empowers us, the elect of the living God, to reject the flawed model and walk the path of true healing. Now that the one cause has been revealed in all its clarity, the path to the solution becomes evident. The way back, the strategy for reversing resistance, the revelation of the previous chapter is the key that unlocks the prison door. If the single cause of the entire cascade of symptoms that leads to the diagnosis of type 2 diabetes is insulin resistance, then the solution couldn't be more logical and straightforward. We need to do the exact opposite of what made us resistant. We need to give our cells a rest. We need to create an environment where they can finally stop ignoring the insulin bell and can instead restore their natural sensitivity. The reversal strategy is not a miracle drug or an exotic supplement. It's a fundamental realignment with our own biology, based on two unshakable pillars. First, drastically reducing the stimulus that causes resistance, and second, increasing the sensitivity of cells to insulin. It is a two-pronged approach that attacks the problem at its source. We are no longer trying to manage the symptom, high sugar, we are solving the equation at its source. The first pillar, reducing the stimulus, means decreasing the frequency and intensity with which the insulin bell is ring. If the problem is a chronic excessive insulin, the most obvious solution is to stop doing the things that stimulate it. And what is the main stimulus for the release of insulin in the human body? The consumption of carbohydrates. All carbohydrates, whether they are simple sugars or complex starches, are digested and turned into glucose in the blood, which in turn triggers the release of insulin. Therefore, the most critical step in reversing insulin resistance is a significant and conscious reduction of carbohydrate intake. That means a farewell, at least for a focused period of healing, to breads, pasta, rice, potatoes, cereals, and above all, sugar in all its forms, including fruit juices and sweetened beverages. The diet needs to be restructured to be based on high-quality protein, natural and healthy fats, and high-fiber, low-starch vegetables. By doing this, you remove the main trigger of hyperinsulinism. You stop flooding your system with glucose, and consequently your pancreas is finally ordered to stop producing massive amounts of insulin. Insulin levels in the blood begin to drop. But it's not just what you eat, it's also when you eat. The practice of eating every 3 hours, or having multiple small snacks throughout the day, keeps insulin chronically elevated, even at lower levels. Every time you eat, you ring the bell. To give the system a real rest, it is critical to consolidate your meals into shorter time windows and allow for extended periods where you don't eat at all. This is intermittent fasting. By practicing fasting, you create a period of hormonal silence. During these hours without food, your insulin levels drop to your basal level, as low as possible. It is in this state of low insulin that the magic happens. The body finally manages to flip the key and move from fat storage mode to fat burning mode. The cells, no longer being constantly bombarded, begin to miss the insulin signal. They begin to increase the number of receptors on their surface again. In a process called upregulation, they are effectively starting to hear the bell again. Combining a low-carb diet with intermittent fasting is the most powerful strategy there is for lowering insulin and breaking the cycle of resistance. The second pillar is to actively increase the sensitivity of cells. And the most potent tool for this is strength training. As we mentioned earlier, muscle tissue is the body's largest storehouse of glucose. When you engage in resistance training, such as weight training, you cause two wonderful effects. First, you empty the stores of glycogen, the stored form of glucose, in your muscles. A muscle with an empty tank becomes hungry for glucose and much more sensitive to insulin to replenish it. Second, the very act of muscle contraction can actually pull glucose from the blood into the muscle cell without even needing insulin, through a separate mechanism called glut for transporters. Building and using your muscles is like installing an emergency drainage system for your blood sugar, a system that works independently of insulin. In addition to exercise, improving sleep quality and stress management are also crucial, as both sleep deprivation and excess cortisol, the stress hormone, are known to worsen insulin resistance. This two-pronged strategy, lowering insulin through diet and fasting, and increasing sensitivity through exercise and lifestyle, is not a gimmick. It is the pure application of physiological logic. If insulin resistance is the cause, insulin sensitivity is the cure. This is the way back. It is the map to get out of the maze. It's a path that requires commitment and the courage to challenge decades of misguided nutrition advice. But it is a path that leads not only to the control of numbers on a device, but to the restoration of vitality and function to the body. It is the journey which the elect of the living God tread not by blind obedience to a new dogma, but by a deep understanding that they were designed for health, and that they possess within them the power to claim it. Now that the plan is outlined, let's conclude our journey with a vision of what the future holds when that path is taken, the choice of freedom. You are not a diagnosis. We have reached the end of our journey of deconstruction. We start with an audacious promise that the 10, 15, or 20 signs of diabetes that teach us to fear are actually distractions, and that behind all the confusion, all the pain, and all the fear, there is a single cause. And now, that cause has been revealed. Insulin resistance. Not as a mysterious condition, but as a logical and adaptive response from an overworked body. We have seen how this single failure in the system generates, like a domino effect, thirst, hunger, fatigue, damage to the eyes, nerves, and the inability of the body to heal itself. By understanding this, you have been presented with the most powerful knowledge that exists in the universe of health, the clarity of the root cause. And with this clarity, the solution ceases to be a maze of conflicting options and becomes a straight and illuminated path. If resistance is the problem, sensitivity is the cure. If excess insulin is the poison, hormonal silence is the antidote. This is the truth that sets you free. Conventional medicine can tell you that type 2 diabetes is a chronic and progressive disease, a life sentence of medication management, constant monitoring, and the looming fear of complications. But this is the truth of the model that only sees the symptom. It is the truth of the model that tries to fix the smoke while ignoring the fire. The truth of physiology, the truth of the human body, is that it is a self-healing system of unimaginable complexity and beauty. He doesn't want to be sick. He strives for homeostasis, for balance, every second. Insulin resistance is not a design flaw. It is a cry for help. And when you finally stop yelling back and start listening, when you remove the aggressors, when you provide the right nutrients, when you respect the rhythms of eating and resting, the body responds. He responds with a gratitude that you can feel. The mental fog dissipates, the energy returns, hunger normalizes, and the numbers on the glucometer begin to reflect not the effect of a drug, but the restoration of true health. You are not a diagnosis. You are a human being with a body that possesses an innate ability to heal itself. His diagnosis is only a snapshot of his current metabolic state, not a prophecy of his future. The path we have outlined, a life with fewer carbohydrates, with periods of fasting, with intelligent movement, is not a deprivation diet. It's a diet of release. It is liberation from constant hunger, chronic fatigue, dependence on medications, and above all, fear. It's about choosing quality over quantity, nutrition over filling, vitality over convenience. It is a choice that requires courage, the courage to be different, to question what everyone around you accepts as normal, the courage to cook instead of unboxing, to drink water instead of juice, to say no thanks to the bread on the restaurant table. But each of these small choices is an act of power. It is a vote of confidence in yourself and your ability to change. It is the journey that the elect of the living God take, not because it is easy, but because they understand that mastery of one's own body is the foundation for mastery in all other areas of life. Now, this knowledge, as powerful as it is useless if it is not put into action. And I know that the first step can be the scariest. So I want our conversation to continue, and I want you to be part of a community of people who, like you, have decided to stop managing disease and start building health. If the message of this video resonated with you, if you felt a call to take control of your metabolic health, then I have a mission for you, and it comes in 3 parts. First, the act of commitment. Go to the comments section right now and write this sentence: I am the cause and the solution. This is not just a comment, it is a statement. It is your affirmation to yourself and to the world that you understand the principle and are ready to act. Reading this phrase coming from hundreds, perhaps thousands of you, will create a surge of energy and responsibility that will propel us all forward. Second, the act of sharing. If you know one person, just one, who is struggling with pre-diabetes, diabetes, or who is simply tired and frustrated with their health, share this video with them. Click the share button and be the catalyst for change in someone's life. Don't keep this clarity to yourself. Be the person who hands the map to someone who is lost in the maze. And third, and most important, the act of continuity. This journey is not a sprint, it is a marathon. And to get through it, you need a reliable guide. If you want to continue receiving this level of deep knowledge, without filters and without dogmas, then your next action is to subscribe to this channel and activate all notifications. Your application is your passport to a continuing education in health, which will give you the tools to be your own master. Do it now. State your commitment in the comments, share the clarity with someone you love, and sign up to make sure you never walk alone on this journey again. Freedom is just a choice away. Make your own.